Welcome to the Trump Tyranny Tracker for what is Thursday, September 18th, 2025. It's day 241 of the Trump administration. And we're going to do things a little bit differently today because there's a lot of breaking news going on and it's worth discussing what's happening right now rather than just looking back at yesterday. And two big events on our horizon right now. There was an interesting press conference with President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Keir Starmer at Chequers this morning, where Trump delivered his harshest public criticism yet of Vladimir Putin, I guess. He said, the one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down, was going to be Russia and Ukraine. That's what he thought would be the easiest to resolve. This comes after months of failed Russian, attempts to negotiate some sort of settlement with Russia and Ukraine. And it also comes out amidst an attempt by Trump to make this all about Europeans purchasing of Russian oil, which he's been doing over the last few days. We'll get to that part a little bit earlier. But any thoughts about Putin's latest comments? To me, it's much more of the same. But he's saying it publicly.
I actually have so many thoughts that I missed the comments because he has so many comments that are all over the map. But I will say that Senator Lindsey Graham, along with Blumenthal, and I believe Senator Britt, and I forgot the fourth one. They have a thing in Senate legislation right now that if Russia does not return the 21,000+ stolen children, that they want to designate Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. So if Trump is so absolutely disappointed by his, BFF Putin, and he feels so let down, I mean, those comments sound like, a boyfriend and girlfriend fighting, honestly. But he's more than willing to contact Lindsey Graham and make sure that this legislation gets passed into law. So he can show his disappointment by doing what a lot of Republicans and Democrats alike are doing with as far as trying to get back Russia's the children kidnapped in Russia re-educated. I mean, this is genocide and war crimes. So that's my thoughts on him. If he's so concerned, contact Lindsey Graham. He had legislation already waiting for Trump to give a go.
He was very at pains to point out that what was going on in Ukraine had nothing to do with the United States, which of course is not correct. But that was his, what he was trying to say. It had a lot more to do, he said, with Europe and with the UK. Also, of course, it's true that it has a lot to do with Europe. But he seemed to really distance himself from the European effort now led by Keir Starmer and Macron to help Ukraine, and what was an American effort before. And now clearly he's not as aligned as he would have been before.
Well, just to remind people that besides the fact that Ukraine, should be a concern to Americans because it directly ties to America's national security. During the Budapest Amendment, what's his name? Clinton forced Ukraine to give up the nuclear weapons. And Budapest referendum. I apologize. I'm like
Budapest
referendum.
Memorandum. It happens.
Okay. Let's try this again. Anyway, this part I do have right. The U.S. did force Ukraine to give up any nuclear weapons and materials, and nonetheless give it back to the terrorist state, to Russia, with guarantee of security and sovereignty. Now, it wasn't a legally binding document, but the bottom line is that had the U.S. at the time not stepped in and forced Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons, these would have been a deterrent that would have prevented Russia from launching its invasion in 2014 and then the full-scale invasion in 2022. So, yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. In many ways, his latest push, Trump is saying that he can get the price of the oil down even further if if the NATO countries stop buying oil from Russia, which they've been doing for a long time. They rely on Russian oil, although lately they've certainly reduced that reliance a lot. Is there anything to his point there that he's saying, Europeans, you need to come on board with me to stop using Russian oil, so that way Putin could be pressured economically to stop this war, because he said that would stop the war. He said, it's a tariff to India. He said he's got tariffs against China, and now Europe should help him out. What do you make of that?
If it came from a normal U.S. president, absolutely. We all know that, Ukrainians have been screaming from the rooftops that even though after the full-scale invasion, Europe dramatically decreased their reliance on Russia's energy, it's still happening. And if it was coming from a U.S. president who said, listen, we need to work together, we need to put pressure on Russia's ability to fund its genocidal war machine. So let's strategize. And I know that you're going to be short on, this amount. We are going to figure out where we can get the supply, which is basically what Biden did, in order to help Europe, transition off of Russia's energy. And they've done enough. I mean, look, they're still funding it, yes, but the drop over the past 3.5 years has been significant. With Trump doing that, this is absolutely, this is just, him again throwing something, anything, he's throwing everything out to see how he can wash his hands clean. Not only that, but to give Russia, provide them cover and continue pushing it forward, so they can continue their genocidal invasion. And that's all he's doing. You think he really cares what Europe buys from where? He's buying Russian eggs from, eggs from Russia. In July, we started buying eggs from Russia. Why is the United States buying eggs from Russia?
Good question.
What?
What do you make of the King's state dinner last night? Trump being feted by the King of England with so much pomp and circumstance. It was quite sickening in some ways. Why is that going on? Do you have a sense of that play? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, Europe, I'm sure there's not one person in European leadership anywhere in any of the countries who doesn't realize Trump for what he is, a sociopath, a whack job, and a con artist. But they also know that, he can temporarily be swayed by, being appealed to. Hence, you saw my daddy, or whatever the nonsense was. Look, Europe, one, is not prepared to break relations with the United States because they are hoping to weather this storm, hoping that by 2028, Trump is out of here and, America, for the most part, starts going back to what America was prior to Trump coming in. So they're not going to be critical of the United States, obviously, unless there's an actual invasion in Greenland or Canada, or starts outright supplying weapons to Russia. So you see this ridiculous spectacle. It is nauseating to watch this for Trump, but this is all to pull him out of Russia's orbit. And if we pull back and think about it, how insane that our European allies, who have been with us for 70 plus years, that we've been extremely tight, that they have to sit and try to pull an American president out of the claws of Russia. It's frankly, we're so used to it, but when you pull back and think this is absolutely disgusting, crazy, and that's it. But this is what it was. It's a spectacle to, flatter him, his ego, and do everything they can to pull him away from Russia and back on their side. Then Putin's going to have another phone call with him, flatter him, tell him you're my best friend, you're such a genius, and try to pull him back towards his sphere.
The other big news story today is the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel from ABC, sorry, indefinitely. Suspension happened yesterday, just hours before they were taping their show, and it followed direct threats from FCC Chairman Brendan Carr who called Kimmel's Monday monologue about conservatives' reactions to Charlie Kirk's assassination the sickest conduct possible. And then he threatened to revoke ABC's affiliate licenses within 48 hours. Now, we've seen this play before because it comes around. We saw it in CBS when Colbert was fired. And as it turns out, there is a merger needing to be approved right now amongst the ABC affiliate stations and member stations. So what do clearly this is the same kind of play, but it's very chilling for free speech.
Yeah, I mean, what it took Putin several years to do with consolidating media, this is what Trump is doing, much quicker. And I mean, really, I'm happy, I'm shocked, not about what happened. I'm shocked and happy that you actually have cable news hosts and pundits finally waking up to the fact that we are moving into authoritarian territory.
Mhm.
I mean, they, for so long, the past decade, all the signs are there. Trump is telling you what he's going to do. He called the press the enemy of the people like the second day of his campaign in 2015. And everything that he is doing, he has told us he's going to do this. I mean, it's not that the man hides anything or that he's any kind of smart strategist, like, oh, let me plot behind the scenes. He really comes out on Truth Social and in his ramblings, and says, well, Jimmy Kimmel's next. He said it, I think, 2 or 3 times. Like, I'm hearing Jimmy Kimmel's next. Oh, he will be next,
Oh,
So
it's unbelievable. The president's having
it's
be able to reach into networks and dictate programming is it's unfathomable. It's never happened before, as far as I can tell, that a president has had so much authority, at least publicly even admitted to such authority, that he's willing to go in and force networks to pull shows. And as you point out, consolidation is the real key here, because not only are they consolidating CBS and many other properties, they've got now probably an attempt to consolidate Disney into that same fold. And then also TikTok is happening on Friday. The conversation between Xi and Trump is happening on Friday to seal the deal on how TikTok will continue to operate under American ownership. But that ownership is also likely to be part of this consolidated group of media assets, which is making a behemoth, really, a real monstrous, probably state-run, you could say, or state-aligned media grouping that will determine all programming in America, all significant programming.
Well, this is exactly what is happening. And I mean, this is systematically happening, whether it be through these, using our agencies. Again, we pay for these agencies. Sadly to say, we're paying for Brendan Carr's salary to come out and use, the FCC as a tool against independent media. So between this and the lawsuits against New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and I mean, this is the whole point, to intimidate, to consolidate, and to shut any independent voices down. I mean, luckily, we're not, we're still steps away from the assassination and murder of journalists, because in Russia, I mean, there's really one photo, where you have just empty chairs with the face of every journalist who was assassinated for doing their job, ordered by the Kremlin. So we're not at that point, but this is a importance. We need to get on this now. I mean, this is something we should have been prepared, and we need to push back now, because if we allow this to slide, and then it'll be what's his name, Fallon after that, and then who knows what other event will happen where Trump will be consolidating power and using that event to do that. So we need to push back now, because if not, we're going to see media unrecognizable. And the last thing I'll say, after Charlie Kirk was murdered, NBC, through all their outlets, put out a poll, pushed an internal memo basically giving directives of how someone should speak about Kirk. I mean, what? Like, I think it is, unless they do something extremely vile. I mean, people have an opinion and they should be able to voice these opinions.
Yeah, and right now all we have is an indictment against an individual. We don't even know if those will stand up in court. I mean, there's no indication yet that this person's even guilty, certainly the person obviously suspected of doing it, but this is, the American system is not done with justice here, and we still need to go through a court case. At that point, you can make your assessments. Um, Chilling stuff, as you point out. Interestingly enough, I just saw today Substack is the only media organization, if you want to call it an organization, that is up in terms of traffic in the last year. Every other main media outlet you can name is down double digits or so in terms of traffic, and Substack up 47%. It's good news for people on Substack, and it's a smart, play that Substack has done. Obviously, it's working, and we have a very smart, dedicated audience who know where to get their news. But on the other hand, it does put Substack sort of high in the sight of fire, or in the line of fire, I should say.
Absolutely. Everyone who is critical of this regime and any platform that is carrying people critical of this regime will be in the line of fire. I mean, this is just how it works. This is how it happened in Russia, in Hungary, and in Belarus, in any authoritarian country. This is how it's happened.
Mhm.
And just to uh, spend a few minutes on this, right after Trump publicly celebrated, the suspension of Kimmel, he came out and decided to, say that he is labeling Antifa, which is, I mean, I don't even know what this Antifa is. It's like an anti-fascist. Who is an anti-fascist? But it's not
It's a
an
made up It's a
organization.
made up ideology.
Exactly. And it's not an organization. It's not registered anywhere. There's no headquarters. There's no center. There's nothing. It's a loose organization, I guess, if you call, or collaboration, or loose network. That's the right word. Loose network of people who may not even know each other, who are anti-fascist. Some of them are anarchists, have nothing to do with anything, but in Trump's head, all of us are Antifa. And yesterday he took the step after Kimmel to designated, or at least announced he designated it, designating it as a terrorist organization. So that means now, under this loose designation of an organization that doesn't exist, that now he's going to put the full weight of the United States to go after Act Blue, which he's already under investigation, Indivisible, already under investigation, every single Democratic politician, every single human rights and democracy and anti-corruption, how you call it, I don't even know, anti-corruption organization.
Mm.
And that's it. And they're all going to be branded as Antifa and use, will have the tools of the state to silence people. So this is another concerning thing besides the media.
I think you're absolutely right. I think this crackdown they've announced and used the whole weight of government to investigate anyone who's on the left who might be funding violence or protests or whatever. They are going to take all that, and I think that's a very astute connection you're making. That Antifa will be the organizational network that they try and find people as being members of this organization, which basically doesn't exist as far as I can tell, except as a cover sometimes for intelligence operations. I mean, that seems to be the only time I've sort of seen it operate. Is people have used it because it's it's a thing you could do false flags under. Um, Anyhow, that's the Trump tyranny tracker for today. We'll be back with another Trump tyranny tracker tomorrow on Friday. It'll be Friday tomorrow, so that's good news, Olga.
Friday.
And
Yeah.
I'll be back in 40 minutes from now with the five stack with Dean Blundell as we count down the top five stories of the day. And you had a very successful first part of your series with Julie last night, a seminar series on disinformation.
Yeah, we went through the Soviet tactics, both and how the Soviet tactics have remained the same, but they how Russia now uses the same tactics with the advancement of technology, and basically trying to figure out and not figure out, but to help people figure out how to push back against disinformation, ways to counter it, and bring what has been successful in Russia, in Estonia, and other countries. So it was great. And, hopefully every bit that counts until they shut it down.
Absolutely. It's very useful information, and people should check out the seminar series at unmaskingrussia.substack.com and also the Trump Tyranny Tracker at substack.substack.com. The other part
And your
of
sickle that is so missing.
it'll come, soon. I'm on my. I try to do it, and then I realize my label print thing doesn't print in color, so I have to
I think at this point I'm going to send one to you. Make
that'll work.
a nice sticker and just send it here.
But people can check out my work at narativ.org, narativ.org, and I will see you there. Thanks, Olga. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.